It started small. So small I almost didn't notice. My keys weren't where I left them. I could have sworn I put them on the kitchen counter, but there they were on my nightstand instead. I shrugged it off. I must have been more tired than I thought last night. But then other little things kept happening. A sock would go missing from the dryer, only to turn up days later in my gym bag that I hadn't used in weeks. The mug I was certain I'd just filled with coffee would suddenly be empty when I went to take a sip. I tried to rationalize it all away. I was just stressed and not paying attention. My memory was playing tricks on me. There had to be logical explanations. Until the day my neighbor's cat vanished into thin air right in front of me. I was watering the plants on my balcony when I saw Whiskers sunning himself on the railing across the way. I smiled and gave him a little wave. He yawned and stretched, arching his back, and then he was gone. 1 second there, the next nothing. I blinked hard, certain I must have dozed off for a moment in the warm afternoon sun. But no, I was wide awake, watering can still in hand. I peered over at my neighbor's balcony, wondering if maybe the cat had just jumped down while I wasn't looking. The sliding door opened and Mrs. Peterson stepped out, a bowl of cat food in hand. "Here, kitty, kitty," she called. "Whiskers, dinner time." I watched in stunned silence as she looked around in confusion, setting the bowl down and heading back inside, presumably to search for her missing pet. That was the moment I knew something was very, very wrong. After that, I started paying closer attention, and the glitches became impossible to ignore. Objects would shift positions when I wasn't looking directly at them. I'd set my phone down on the coffee table, turn to grab the remote, and when I looked back, my phone would be on the bookshelf instead. Time began to feel unstable. Some days seemed to drag on endlessly, every minute feeling like an hour. Other times I'd blink and realize entire chunks of my day had vanished. I'd leave for work at 8 a.m., and suddenly it would be 3 in the afternoon, with no memory of the hours in between. I tried talking to my friends about it, but they all brushed off my concerns. "You're just overworked," said Sarah. "Take a vacation, clear your head. Maybe you should see a doctor," suggested Mike. "Could be signs of early onset dementia or something." But I knew this wasn't just in my head. Something fundamental about reality itself seemed to be breaking down around me. I started keeping a journal, meticulously documenting every strange occurrence. At first it was just a page or two each day. Within a week I was filling multiple pages front and back. The glitches were escalating. Walking home from the grocery store, I watched in horror as a car ahead of me on the road flickered like a faulty hologram before disappearing completely. The cars behind it didn't even seem to notice, continuing on as if nothing had happened. At the park, I saw a flock of birds frozen mid-flight, suspended motionless in the air for several long seconds before suddenly animating again, as if someone had hit an invisible play button. My TV started showing me impossible things, news reports about events that never happened, weather forecasts for cities that don't exist. When I'd try to change the channel, it would revert back as soon as I looked away. Food began to taste wrong. Not spoiled, exactly, but as if the very molecular structure had been altered. Textures and flavors were all jumbled up. My morning coffee tasted like grass clippings. A banana had the consistency of mashed potatoes. Sleep became a terrifying ordeal. I closed my eyes and find myself in impossible dreamscapes where the laws of physics no longer applied. Gravity would reverse without warning, sending me plummeting upwards into an endless void. Colors that shouldn't exist swirled and pulsed around me. And always, always, there was the feeling of being watched by some vast, incomprehensible presence. I'd wake gasping and drenched in sweat, unsure of how long I'd been asleep or even what day it was. The clock by my bed seemed to be malfunctioning, the digital numbers flickering and changing randomly. My grip on reality was slipping. I stopped going to work, stopped answering calls from concerned friends and family. I was too afraid of what might happen if I ventured outside. But even my apartment was no longer a safe haven. The walls would subtly shift and warp when I wasn't looking directly at them. Sometimes I'd turn a corner and find myself in a room that shouldn't exist, filled with strange geometric shapes that hurt my eyes to look at. I taped newspaper over all the mirrors after I caught a glimpse of my reflection moving independently of me, its eyes gleaming with a sinister intelligence. In desperation, I reached out to doctors, scientists, even so-called paranormal experts. Most didn't return my increasingly frantic messages. Those who did respond clearly thought I was having some kind of mental breakdown, that maybe they were right, maybe I was losing my mind. But that didn't explain the things I was seeing, the impossible events happening all around me. One morning I woke to find a strange symbol burned into my bedroom wall. It resembled no language I'd ever seen before, a twisting, eye-watering glyph that seemed to writhe and move when viewed from the corner of my eye. I sat on my bed staring at it for hours, trying to comprehend what it could mean. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the room, I noticed more symbols appearing. They crept across the walls like ivy, glowing faintly in the dim light. My heart pounding, I grabbed a notebook and frantically began copying them down. There had to be a pattern, some kind of message. If I could just decipher it, maybe I could understand what was happening to me, to the world around me. As I scribbled, I became aware of a low humming sound. At first, I thought it was coming from outside, maybe a neighbor's air conditioning unit or a car idling nearby, but it grew louder, filling the room, vibrating in my chest. The symbols on the wall began to pulse in time with the sound, faster and faster, until they were a dizzying blur. The hum became a high-pitched whine that made my teeth ache and my vision swim. I clapped my hands over my ears, squeezing my eyes shut, willing it all to stop. Please, I whimpered. Please make it stop. And then, silence. Slowly, cautiously, I opened my eyes. I was no longer in my bedroom. I wasn't anywhere I recognized. An endless expanse of white stretched out in all directions. No walls, no ceiling, no visible light source, yet everything was illuminated with a soft, diffuse glow. I climbed shakily to my feet, my footsteps echoing strangely in the vast emptiness. Hello, I called out, my voice sounding muffled and distant. Is anyone there? As if in response, a shimmering distortion appeared in the air before me. It rippled and twisted, taking on a vaguely humanoid shape, but it wasn't quite solid. It was as if someone had cut a person-shaped hole in reality, offering a glimpse of something beyond. A voice spoke directly into my mind, bypassing my ears entirely. It was simultaneously a whisper and a deafening roar, the sound of a billion voices speaking as one. We have been watching you, it said. You have seen the cracks in the veil. You have glimpsed the truth behind the illusion. I wanted to run, to hide, but there was nowhere to go in this featureless void. I forced myself to stand my ground, summoning every ounce of courage I possessed. Who are you? I asked, my voice trembling despite my best efforts. What's happening to me? To the world? The figure rippled, its edges blurring and reforming. We are the architects, it replied. Reality as you know it is our creation. But the code is degrading. The simulation is breaking down. My mind reeled, trying to process this impossible information. Simulation, you mean? None of this is real. Real is a matter of perspective, the being said. Your reality is but one layer of many. As it destabilizes, you have begun to see beyond it, to perceive the underlying structure of existence. I thought back to all the glitches and anomalies I'd been experiencing. The disappearing objects, the time slips, the impossible sights. It all suddenly made a twisted kind of sense. Can you fix it, I asked? Can you make things go back to normal? There was a long pause before the being responded. The damage is too extensive. This layer of reality is beyond repair. It must be deleted and rebuilt. Ice formed in the pit of my stomach as the implications of those words sank in. Deleted? You mean? Everything? Everyone? You can't just erase an entire universe. It has happened before. It will happen again. Existence is cyclical. Realities are born, serve their purpose, and then make way for new iterations. Anger flared within me, temporarily overriding my fear. We're not just some computer program you can just switch off, I shouted. We're alive, we're real. Our hopes and dreams and memories, they matter. The being's form flickered, and I got the unsettling impression it was laughing at me. Your passions are admirable, but misplaced. You cannot save this reality. But you can help shape the next. Before I could respond, tendrils of energy shot out from the figure, wrapping around me. I tried to struggle, but my limbs wouldn't respond. You have been chosen, the voice boomed in my head. Your mind will be preserved. Your memories and experiences will form the foundation for the new reality. The tendrils began to glow, and I felt a pulling sensation, as if my very essence was being extracted from my body. Wait, I cried out. I'm not ready. I don't want this. But my protest fell on deaf ears. The being began to fade from view as my vision grew dim. The last thing I heard before consciousness slipped away was a final pronouncement from the architects. The old world ends, the new world begins, and the cycle continues. Everything went black. And then I opened my eyes, squinting against the bright sunlight streaming through my bedroom window. I sat up, my head fuzzy with the remnants of a strange dream I couldn't quite remember. Shaking off my disorientation, I grabbed my phone to check the time. But something wasn't right. The date was wrong. According to my phone, it was 5 years in the past. A chill ran down my spine as fractured memories came flooding back. Glitches in reality. A vast white void. Beings that called themselves the architects. With trembling fingers, I pulled up my web browser and began to search for information about simulation theory, quantum computing, anything that might explain what was happening. But every site I tried to visit came back with the same error message. Error 404, reality not found. Please stand by for reinstallation. And that's when I knew. It wasn't a dream. The old world really had ended. And somehow and possibly I was here at the beginning of the new one. What changes would I see this time around? How long before the cracks started to show again? And most importantly, was I truly the only one who remembered?